Well, hello there. My name is Ian, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've brought a very special guest, my friend Mike Vieta from Life and Surround, to talk about the brand new Steven Wilson live release entitled Impossible Tightrope live in Madrid. This is a recording of a June 2025 show taken from his most recent The Overview Tour, his first tour in 7 years. This is a very interesting release in that it's kind of a flagship release for his new Headphone Dust store, which similar to Immersive Audio Album, which no doubt my viewers will be familiar with, is an online music store where you can purchase high-resolution files, stereo, 5.1 Dolby Atmos files of Steven Wilson mixes. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you today. I'm looking forward to talking about this album and getting into aspects of the mix and the performance.
Hey, so first of all, thanks for having me on. And second of all, we have an excellent show to talk about. This is a set list that is very satisfying for me and performances that are just impeccable. So we got a lot to dig into. Cool live mix that we would expect from S-Dub. So that's all I have to say for now. Follow your lead from here.
I think I'm going to access the Headphone Dust web store just so folks can see what this is all about. I think I'm going to put the track list up because, as I was mentioning to you before we started, I am such a physical media guy. It's almost impossible for me to talk about this without having some sort of reference point in my hand. I'm so used to that.
I can relate.
I think the big thing to talk about here is that we get a complete album performance here. It opens with the Overview album Complete, which I don't think any prior Steven Wilson releases, with the exception of Anesthetize, the Porcupine Tree concert, has been able to offer a complete album like this. I know that you're maybe not the biggest fan of the Overview album, if you're comfortable with me saying so.
Yeah, well, I'm on record saying that. So I have vowed that sometime this year I will put that Atmos Blu-ray back on and give it another chance and, see if I owe some penance or something. So having said that, it's a point that I wanted to make. This show has begun to win me over to that material.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I got through those two tracks very pleasantly. So, there's something to be said for Steven Wilson translating his material to the live setting that maybe just brings some energy for me that I need.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'll say I am a big fan of the Overview album. It was a nice return to form for me because I honestly didn't care much for the harmony codecs. And I'm still kind of getting acquainted with that. That's one thing that I wish this album would have had more of, was more harmony codecs material, because we do get What Life Brings, which I think is a beautiful version of it, and we also get Impossible Tightrope. And
yeah, the title track here. Yeah,
that's a good place to start because the title track for me is not the highlight of the harmony codecs album, but here it works really well for me because it's almost like a palate cleanser between the Overview set, which is very much its own conceptual thing. It's almost using music to evoke architecture to me. And I think that that's what that whole harmony codecs thing is about. It's about,
yeah, if you read the story, it is absolutely about like ascending this high rise that's just this kind of mental psychological maze. And he sprinkles in just enough of the lyric that it reminded me of the story. So I flip-flopped on you. I actually really enjoyed the harmony codecs quite a bit. I wasn't a super fan of like the poppiest song on there, but the title track in particular on the album in Atmos just has this method of panning where like sequentially, like through the song, it's like the panning goes through these 12 steps, like the arrangement like shifts around you like a clock. And I've never heard anybody do anything like that, and it was just the most astounding thing I've ever heard. I think I made mention of that in the review I did.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. And now that I've heard this live version, I'm eager to return to the harmony codecs album. I didn't appreciate it so much as a studio record. Now I'm hearing these pieces live, and I'm like, oh, I want to go check that out now. But I was fascinated about that compositional aspect as well, because when I think ambient music, I think of like Tangerine Dream, which is very much floaty. It's sequencer based. This is also floaty and sequencer based, but it almost has like a classical element to it, almost like a Bach element to it that I really appreciated. And I like it that it also relates aesthetically to the overview, especially the early sections where you have that electronic passage it's almost like On the Run by Pink Floyd, but Steven's wife does her little voiceover on it. So I thought that was really nice.
Now, there are no female vocals credited for the album. Do you think that was like a sample trigger, or how did they do that?
That's definitely a sample. Yeah. I don't think she was there live. But before we move on to the rest of the show, I do want to dig into the overview just a little bit.
Sure.
And this is another example of a studio album that when I listen to the record, I very much get the feeling that Steven was building one track at a time. He wasn't necessarily going in and knocking it out live. And when I listen to this version, it's got a much looser feel to it, and it's got like a jazzier feel to it. And it occurred to me that the nucleus of this band has existed since, I guess 2015 because of Craig Blundell. So it's almost like hearing the Hand Cannot Erase band or even the Raven band tackle this material in field. Did you find that as well?
All I can say is that the way that each performer laid down these tracks was very compelling for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not that I dislike very much of Steven Wilson's material on album, but yeah, there's just something about catching it live or even just sitting in your home theater and listening live that these guys definitely have the chops to handle extremely complex and extremely dense arrangements without sounding clinical. And I think that's the difference. Sometimes I think Wilson's recorded work, studio work, can get a little bit clinical for me.
I would agree with that. And I think that Craig Blundell has come a long way as a drummer, and he was great to begin with, but when he entered the band, he was basically following Marco Miniman.
Yeah.
And I think even at the time he said, this was a task that I wasn't quite up to yet, but being thrown into it, he was able to grow very quickly. And I think he's every bit as strong as Marco Miniman. Like, I was listening to some of his double kick work on some of the heavier tracks, and I was just astonished.
Yeah, I was giving my dual subs up in the front of the room quite a workout. Now, and also talking about the drumming, I really love that Wilson has continued with his motif of panning toms.
Oh, yes.
From the surrounds through the front of the room and, out the other way. Like, I just can't get enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. And when we get into the Raven mix, I think we're going to talk even more about that. But there's just a few other musicians I wanted to give a nod before we talk about a few other songs in the set. And then, of course, the mix itself. I think I mentioned to you that Adam Holzman is my most valuable player here. And he is playing absolutely incredible mini moog solos, piano solos. And my favorite keyboardist is George Duke of Frank Zappa and the Mothers. And that solo on Inca Roads just blows my mind. But when I heard this version of Regret Number 9, I was like, this is getting close. This is some pretty astonishing stuff. But I also wanted to give a shout out to Randy McStein, who is the newcomer of the band. I think Alex Hutchins was the previous guitar player when Steven did his To the Bone tour. In my opinion, and I've been following Steven's music since Grace for Drowning. And I saw the Raven tour. I saw Hand Cannot Erase. Home Invasion Regret Number 9 is, oh man, that's a top maybe 3 Steven Wilson tune. Definitely maybe top 2 of his solo work for me.
Yeah, and they absolutely wail on it here.
Oh yes, yeah.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, and this Home Invasion is incredibly funky. It's like got that loose tightness that I find so appealing. But when they break into the Regret Number 9 section, it's always a highlight of any Steven Wilson concert. But for me, they brought it another level up.
Yeah, they get positively bombastic with it here.
Yeah.
I was very thoroughly pleased.
Yeah, it's sensational. So, I want to talk real quick. We do get a couple of Porcupine Tree tracks that haven't been brought out in a while,
Yeah, one of them
and
super old school too.
yeah, exactly.
Voyage
Two of them, in
34.
fact. Voyage 34, yeah, which I've never heard this. Have you heard the studio version of Voyage 34?
Yes, it's been a very, very long time back when friends used to like send each other CDs through the mail. It's been a long time. But I mean, isn't that like that goes back to like almost his earliest days, like, you know, demos in his
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah, I meant to look into that more, but it's one of those things that I'm almost afraid to go back and listen to the original recording because I feel like it's going to be disappointing after this great version, which
That might be
almost,
wise.
yeah, it almost like evokes Run Like Hell, the Pink Floyd tune if it were played by Gong. Like you've got all this
Yeah.
spacey synths and sequencers around and stuff.
Yeah, you know, I caught a Pink Floyd vibe quite a few times during the show, particularly in the way that you're saying, like the mini Moog work goes revolving around the room.
Oh yeah,
And then harmony codecs when those chimey keyboard parts also get, you know, rotated like around the listening position. That's the sort of thing that Pink Floyd started pioneering live, and
yes.
then they carried that forward, you know, into some of the Dark Side of the Moon quad work.
We need to talk about the title track because when I was talking about the harmony codecs, I remember the first time I listened to that record and I heard Impossible Tightrope. My immediate thought was this thing is going to come to life on stage, and so I think it was wise of Wilson to name his first release, post harmony codecs, the Impossible Tightrope, because in some ways that almost describes the live situation itself. Like everybody's walking this tightrope, but it also I think has the potential to become the new showpiece. And just hearing how Regret Number 9 has evolved over the years, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this piece evolves in future set lists. But in this version, it's phenomenal. What I can't tell you if it's better than the album version because I miss Theo Travis. You know, I'm a wind player, so of course I would miss Theo.
Sure.
But it's another opportunity, much like the overview title track. It's another opportunity for Adam Holzman to do his thing.
I was rather impressed that, you know, we got cuts from Insurgentis, we
Oh yeah,
got a cut from 4.5,
yeah,
got some early PT, like we already said, and you know, Hand Cannot Erase is represented. We get The Raven That Refused to Sing, my favorite song by Steven Wilson and one of my favorite songs by anyone.
hmm
So, you know, that was a very pleasant way for him to land it for me.
yeah,
So I just think that the set list was very well chosen. I found it more satisfying, for instance, than Home Invasion, just in terms of the song selection.
yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty strong card for him to play in, you know, launching Headphone Dust.
It is.
And
Yes.
that being said, I want to just make a comment on the format that
hmm
these files are in, because like just having a single MKV to deal with makes it a challenge to, for instance, you know, go back to a song that you really enjoyed. The way that I handled that was I actually had Chat GPT tell me when the songs were approximately going to start in
Yeah.
elapsed time. So then I was able to fast forward my Noemi to a few seconds before that and
Well, I'm
go
glad you
back and
mentioned
grab.
Annoy Me. So
Mhm.
let me grab mine real quick because I want to do like a show and tell for people.
Sure. And while he's doing that, mine's right back here. Right back here. It's just a little device. Jonathan Cornell recommended it to me because I was having some stutter problems playing MKV straight into my Blu-ray players. Yeah, so I picked up a Neumi Atom 4K and I run it straight into my Denon AVR, and so far it has just worked very well in terms of handling the files for
hmm
playback. My only gripe is the GUI is a little bit frustrating, as well as the remote, but
Yeah.
you know, it takes a few extra seconds to kind of do what you want it to do, but once it's up and running, you know, it's performing very well for me.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned Jonathan because he and I are actually planning a video teaching people how to play back MKV files, because I owe it to him, for me even getting into digital MKV files. If I hadn't run into Jonathan on the Quad forums, and then he eventually become like my co-host for surround stuff, I would be one of those guys on Quad forums right now saying, when's the CD going to come out? How come he can't do a Blu-ray? I don't know how to work this. But I just wanted to tell folks that this little device, which I will link in the description, because it's like $60 on Amazon, this will allow you to play MKV files back in Dolby Atmos. You just hook this into your receiver, as Mike has done, or in my case, I've hooked it into my TV. But it doesn't really matter. It plays back in full high definition quality. But as Mike said, the user interface is a little bit buggy. It takes a little getting used to, but you can pause.
I've even run mine through my Blu-ray players, and it works just fine.
Okay.
I wondered if the extra HDMI step would cause it problems, but it didn't. And hey, just to give you a heads up, because we're friends, I have gotten a lot of my viewers have wanted a how-to on playing back files too. So I'm planning how to do that video soon as well.
Super. Okay, cool. And that video will be on Immersive Audio Albums YouTube channel, not this one. What I wanted to just kind of talk about real quick was I wanted to summarize our thoughts on this concert, because I'm sort of the opinion that this is his best solo recording, live recording yet. Had he put out a release of the Raven Tour or Hand Cannot Erase, I might be saying one of those is his best, his best live recording. But at the moment, from where I'm sitting, I think that this performance from the Overview Tour is absolutely his best solo live recording.
Yeah, it gets my vote too. I just lament that we don't get video.
Agreed. Yeah. And he explained in that interview with Jonathan why that was. He said that most of the show was in the dark. So he didn't want to bother trying to get cameras, and it's also like logistically very expensive.
I hear him on that, but sometimes perfection is the enemy of the good. And like some of my favorite shows from favorite bands are like a bootleg from some homie sitting in the balcony with a camcorder.
Yeah,
so,
right.
It's like, as long as the sound is there, I think a lot of times people are very forgiving about video.
Yeah, and I would have liked a video. And honestly, now that we're talking about it, I would like to see a Blu-ray release of this. Would I buy one for the ability to skip tracks?
Like Blu-ray audio?
Maybe. Yeah, just a Blu-ray audio of this. And the reason why I say that is because not everybody is going to go to the trouble to learn how to use one of these, to learn how to do the download thing. And some people are just going to want to buy the discs. And I have friends who are saying, when this comes out on CD, let me know, I'll buy it. So I do hope at some point he does put it out on disc, just because it is so fantastic, in my opinion. And it's a great recording, great performance. It belongs on my shelf, I guess is what I'm saying. I'd like to have it right next to these on my shelf.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the mix, because I'm sure that people are interested in what we think. When Jonathan and I do these reviews about live recordings, and when we did our live favorite live albums video, we talked about how there's two basic approaches to mixing a live recording in surround sound. You could do like the band up front approach with like audience mics and ambience in the back, which kind of replicates the experience of sitting in an audience.
Sure.
And there's totally a logic and an appeal to that style. And the second way is to present a live show very unrealistically, where you're almost in the audience and you're sitting on stage with the band at the same time, and they're all around you. Stephen, as per his usual, I would say, procedure, has chosen the latter. And so you feel like you're in the audience. You feel like there's people sitting around you, but you also feel like, oh, okay, I hear Adam Holzman coming in the back, or the Mini Moog is in the heights. Or maybe the guitar starts off at the left side of the stage and starts to travel a little bit. Or, I hear a vocal effect that hits the back, or there's some synths bubbling up top, or whatever. But I don't know. How do you feel? Do you prefer a more ambient mix, like say a classical concert would be, or even some rock concerts would be? Or do you prefer this more unrealistic approach?
I'll give you one guess, and then I'll give you my spiel on it. I just did a review of Three Doors Down in tribute to the recent passing of Brad Arnold. And one thing that I discussed there is that on that Monster Music live DVD, live from Houston, Texas, there's the choice to listen to the audience perspective mix, or they provide an on-stage mix.
Hmm.
Now, in that instance, what they have done is they've pulled the two guitarists forward in the room so that they are hitting you from your flanks.
Mm.
And that leaves the lead vocal, the drums panned in stereo up front, and bass, front and center. It just gives you more clarity. Everything has room to breathe. Nothing needs to be like overly processed or EQ'd. And that concert hits like a freight train.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I really appreciate when labels go to that extra length to give a more immersive live experience. And if I recall correctly, there's at least one Rush show where I think it might have been Richard Schickey pulled Alex forward in the mix. So
Mm-hmm.
he's out there with you on either side of your listening position. And so that gives him a lot of space from all those keyboards and drum parts. And so I'm definitely a fan of the Steven Wilson approach. And even if somebody doesn't get quite as daring, because they didn't get super daring with that Three Doors Down concert, Wilson goes a few steps further where he's going to bring the toms out into the room. And he also situates some of the background vocals
Mm-hmm.
in the rear heights,
Mm-hmm.
which is always satisfying for me. I like that, choir of angels giving me those harmony vocals. And then the keyboard parts, the keys. You're very rarely going to hear guitars. I don't think I heard any guitars, traveling around the room. But and I think it's Holzman who is mimicking, like strings and some brass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's credited for actually playing that sort of thing live. So he's replicating all that, and Holzman is positioned almost exclusively in the rear immersive field for this show. And
Yeah.
so again, that gives him all kinds of breathing room away from those drums and guitars. So you're hearing his very impressive playing just with, you can even just take a walk around the room and if you want to learn what these guys are playing. So I
Yeah.
absolutely appreciate that sort of mix. I kind of respect where people are coming from if they just want the live experience of standing
Yeah.
around, in general admission. But there is a case to be made for live sound even having rear elements because, like I
Sure.
said, Pink Floyd did it, and I'm pretty sure there are probably other instances where other bands have tried to do that live.
Steven Wilson, in fact.
I
I
thought
think,
so. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think he did that for Hand Cannot Erase, the tour I caught, but I've heard that he's done that.
he did it for the Raven for a fact. I know that. And
Okay.
I saw the Raven in a converted church in Pittsburgh. So it was like kind of a basement venue. But we definitely had rear surround activity.
I've come to just expect excellence whenever Steven Wilson's name is on any mix. Early on in his career, he was already an outstanding engineer, but he had some chinks in his armor every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And right now, it just seems like he's killing it. He
Mm-hmm.
knows what to do. He knows what we want because it's the same thing he wants.
Yeah.
And, it's like, you know that if you are a surround or immersive junkie, that he's going to come through for you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very well said. And especially in this era where he's going back and returning to his previous 5.1 mixes. And just, it's a total home run every time he goes back to these old mixes. And that's a good segue because I want to make sure that people know to like the video and also to subscribe to both of our channels. If you go to the subscribe bar, you'll see that I'm collaborating today with Life and Surround. So make sure you're subscribed to his channel as well because his content is fantastic. But what I wanted to tell you about is that Mike and I are planning to review The Raven That Refused to Sing, and we'll be doing that on Mike's channel. So you want to make sure you're subscribed to him. Also, very soon, we're going to be reviewing Yes's Tales from Topographic Oceans, which, oh man, I am really excited to talk about that one because I've had an epiphany on that record lately.
Thank you very kindly for what you said about my channel. I do what I can, and I'm definitely looking forward to reviewing Raven with you.
Hmm.
We've both already heard it, and the only thing I'll say for now is just like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible mix.
yeah, the original 5.1 was no slouch,
No,
and
it wasn't.
yeah, and I've said over and over and over again that Raven is my favorite Steven Wilson record, so it is absolutely a dream come true for it to drop in Atmos, and I'll be the biggest proponent there is if he finds it in his heart to drop it on Blu-ray. And
Hmm.
like you said, just so you can own it, you can go access the tracks that you want to. Because right now, these files for the immersive mix are being released as just one solid MKV. And like
Right.
that's something I appreciate about Jonathan's work at IAA is that he splits every song into its own MKV. I really
Yeah.
do appreciate that. I've grown to appreciate that more now that I've experienced having to just kind of uh, get my way through a solid block of 2 hours of music.
Yeah, I think I'll always be a proponent of physical media. But while we're doing this, I do see how it opens up a lot of possibilities. Like, um, for instance, I would love to see Steven Wilson revisit the Jethro Tull catalog in Atmos, the same way that he has, say, the King Crimson catalog, the XTC catalog, the Yes catalog, and so on.
Okay, so you have just addressed the elephant in the room. Is Headphone Dust going to stick with like the original incarnation where it's Steven Wilson's solo stuff and projects he's involved in, or is it going to extend into that catalog stuff for other groups?
Well, I don't want to give away too much of Jonathan's great interview, which I do recommend everybody go watch. But I believe he said something about approaching labels to get the license for certain things.
Okay.
And what I was getting at with the Tall catalog is that I don't think I mind the idea of buying digital copies of things that I already own excellent physical editions of.
Yeah.
And in the case of the Jethro Tull catalog, I just don't see them really enticing me to want to buy those big book sets again. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's some extra or something lurking out there, some more video or something. But
Now, hey,
um,
if it were me running the label and knowing what I know about what fellow immersive enthusiasts really want, I would be considering a digital release and a standalone Blu-ray. Just
yeah,
keep the physical media nice and cheap. Since we have all already invested in these book sets, I've got almost all of the Toll book sets myself,
yeah,
and so yeah. In terms of Wilson revisiting stuff like Raven in Atmos, uh, it's already been honored with a beautiful deluxe set. So,
you're right.
standalone Blu-ray would do me just fine.
If Steven Wilson were to do a standalone Atmos Raven Blu-ray mix, I think that would be an awesome opportunity to mix a Raven show in Atmos because he has a lot of songs and also arrangements of songs that have not been released. And one of them is a medley that I saw as it was an encore for the Raven tour, where he joined No Twilight Within Courts of the Sun with Remainder the Black Dog. And that thing was a riff monster. And it was just so heavy. And it was heavier than the Get All You Deserve version of No Twilight. So that's been on my wish list. Number two is the arrangement of Index from the Hand Cannot Erase tour, because that thing was evil and it needs to come out.
Yeah, and you've touched on a point that I had hoped to make myself. We've got Impossible Tightrope so far,
Mhm.
but even if all he does is offer up digital downloads for um, shows from previous tours, particularly if they're mixed in Atmos, I would be super excited about each and every one of those. Really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that had occurred to me as well, but I think that would be an excellent use of this web store. So for you folks at home, once again, don't forget to like the video, to subscribe to our channels. Also, leave us a comment below if you've done the Headphone Dust thing and you're listening to and enjoying these files as much as we are. What would you like to see next from the Headphone Dust store? I think that could be a really awesome conversation to start in the comments. But until then, Mike, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. And I'm looking forward to getting into some Raven and some Yes very, very soon. Take care, my
Same.
friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks everybody for watching.